She's putting words in.
Okay, yes, we are live. So we're live in our boxing.
Sorry for the delay, folks. Welcome to the good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township of North Dumfries Council meeting for August 8th. Please note that we do also have
Sorry, that
one.
we don't have that tonight.
You don't have-
No.
Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and participate in this open meeting electronically. Attend the township office located at 2958 Greenfield Road, Dumfries Room, or watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the township's YouTube page. Excuse me. Or attend electronically to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. And finally, submit written comments to the clerk's division that have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, please, and have the approval of the agenda.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rowland, that council adopt the August 8th, 2022 council agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1. Add item 10.1.2b, report number CAO 33-2022, update Region of Waterloo draft land needs assessment 2021 to 2051, and regional official plan review. 2. Add item 12.5, correspondence received from the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility regarding the 2022 Ontario Senior Achievement Award.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I'd like to now do the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe and Mutual people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land. Today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. So I'd like to pause now as we reflect on what has happened, where we are at as our growth together for our future and stronger Canada. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of any interest or general nature thereof? Saying none. A motion to adjourn as from council to sit as committee of the whole.
Moved myself by Councilor Oxner, that council adjourned to sit as committee of the whole.
All those in favor? That's scary. Thank you. We are now going to move into the finance function areas. Is there any member of council who wishes to call or speak to any item? Seeing no response, can I please have the motion, Councilor Austin?
Sorry, I'm just moved by myself, second by Council Rowland, that the committee of whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the finance function area. 10.11A, report number FIN 24-2022, 2022 additional Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Foundation grant award and allocation. That FIN report number 24-2022 be received, and that the township receiving the grant allocation of $16,401 from the Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Foundation, and that consistent with the foundation's direction received by the township on July 19, 2022, that the township allocate the funds to the following community group: the Air Community Theater for $16,471. And that a letter be sent to the mayor on behalf of council. Letter be sent by the mayor on behalf of council thanking the Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Foundation for their financial support and recognition of this community group.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Next up is one moment, please.
Where is this?
Okay. Anyone wish to pull any items on development services? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Councilor Freeman?
Moved by myself and seconded by Council Roman, that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented, as outlined in staff reports listed in the development services function area. A, report number PD 32/2022, Part 4 Ontario Heritage Act, amend bylaw to designate heritage property at 2596 Elks Road. The PD report number 32/2022 be received, and that council read and enact bylaw number 3341-22, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 918-86 to correct the legal description of the property, and that the clerk be directed to issue a notice of amended bylaw pursuant to subsection 30.19 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And B, report number CAO 33-2022, update Region of Waterloo draft land needs assessment 2021 to 2051, and the regional official plan review. And that PD report number 33/2022 be received for the purpose of information.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Next, we have the community services. Is there any items that anyone wishes to pull? Councilor Austin?
Yes, I'd like to pull report E, REC 21-2022, request for tender, Schmidt Parks Improvement.
Thank you. And Councilor Roman?
Yes, same one.
Do you want to pass the motion to dispatch?
Oh, we can do that, yeah.
So the rest of the motion will be passed. We will just eliminate E on the motion. It does not have to be read in its entirety. Councilor Gillespie.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Roman, that will recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in staff reports listed in the community services function area. 10.1.3A, report number CAO 25-2022, revised and updated consideration of installing dedication plaque, McNeil and Donsky Park. 10.1.3B, report number PW 15/2022, 2022 State of Infrastructure Roads Report. 10.1.3C, report number PW 16/2022, request for tender award NDRFT 06-2022, sidewalk new construction and rehabilitation. 10.1.3D, report number PW 17/2022, boundary road agreement with the city of Hamilton. 10.1.3F, report number REC 22-2022, request for tender award NDRFT RC 03-2022, baseball lighting, Schmidt Park and Victoria Park. 10.1.3G, report number REC 23-2022, project cost adjustment for 3 lit tennis courts, Schmidt Park. And 10.1.3H, report number REC 24-2022, leisure services master plan priority list, recommendations 1 to 3 years, implementation strategy.
Thank you. CEO McNeely, are you referring to A, which is the one where council needs to provide direction for staff?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As it relates to the dedication plaque, staff need direction as to whether or not council wishes it mounted on the service building in Kennel Park, or whether you wish it put on a pedestal in proximity to the skate park itself. Why I ask is because there's a slight difference in cost and a set of the report, depending upon which way you wish the plaque position.
Councilors, comments, please. Council Goldman.
Madam Mayor, I think it makes the most sense to have it close to the skate park. I don't know what putting it on accessory buildings makes any sense. I know it's a bit more expensive, but the reference to the skate park would be more obvious.
Any other comments? I have a concern about just doing it on a pole in itself. I'm concerned about banging into it. That's my only concern. You're talking basically a pole for the sign to be on, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So it would look very similar to what we've done on some heritage properties, proximity to a sidewalk. So for example, on Swan Street, 54 Swan, or the old Tollmaster residence, we have a freestanding podium and it's about a meter offset from the sidewalk. We have another location, of course, for State Court. It's behind the back curb, I believe. Freestanding, mounted. It's a large diameter, so it's not going to bend. If that's what you're concerned of, someone's going to lean on.
No, I'm more concerned about someone like me who's a klutz that would probably bang into it or walk into it.
No, we would move it at least a meter offset from the travel pathway.
Okay, any other comments? Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that if, and we have that pedestal system already kind of started, how we're doing it, I think that makes more sense to say, to stay consistent with it rather than, do an Easter egg hunt on plaques. I think that if people are looking for plaques, if they're looking for anything, and I'm talking maybe 20, 30 years down the road, I think it's going to be easy for them to find it if they know that we have been starting a system and we're consistent with that system rather than change things.
Any other comments?
And I guess, Sue, if you run into it too many times, you can put your name on it twice. Every time you run into it.
As long as just a simplification, which you guys know that, but I agree.
So if I could there be a friendly amendment to the resolution, just specific to this one item, that it's council's preference that the plaque be mounted on a pedestal in proximity to the skate park facility.
And the movement secretary are fine with that amendment, Councilor Gillespie and Councilor Roman. Okay,
Thank you, Council.
So all in favor? Thank you. And next up for discussion is inviting item E, Councilor Austin first and then Councilor Roman.
Madam Mayor. So my question is, we talked about the cost savings and that it being over budget and removing part of the pathway, etc. I think that infrastructure things like the pathway should stay in the project, and add-ons that can be added later might be, I think, a little bit of a more logical way of doing it, in my opinion. So I just wondered what the cost savings would be if we remove the Armourstone education area for now, but put in, left the pathways and everything. Because I think that we need the pathways. I think it's important to put the pathways and like your infrastructure. I wouldn't build a Walmart if I didn't have the street that goes to the Walmart. So I'm just wondering if it might be a better idea to look at removing the education center, and if funding comes down the line, or we can put it into the budget rather than tearing it apart bits and pieces. Just take one item out. Would that help? I don't know.
So, Madam Mayor, in the absence of this, which is on try to answer the questions related to this report. it's an estimate. If the armor stone, and I'll call it the elements that go with the armor stone, it's just more than the armor stone itself. But those elements would probably be in the order of a $10,000 reduction. If it was to be removed from the project scope.
And we have to. We're trying to remove 50,000.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Oster, staff looked at an area within the overall build, and we sort of interrelated aspects that go with the last portion of the trail where we start the incline toward the Scott Street sidewalk at the extreme north limit. We have a change in material, so the vast majority of the trail is hard surface, but it's a type of material that promotes infiltration through the hard surface. Because of the slope, as we pass the fire hall, we start to climb through that trees on Scott Street. We actually have to go with a true asphalt surface, just because of the slope and concern for erosion as it's set. So between the change in the surface material, the nature of what has to go underneath the asphalt trail, the transitional grading, the extra siltation controls, because we'll obviously have disturbed that ridge as we try to climb towards Scott Street. We have identified that zone to have an order of magnitude of about $50,000. So, as I said, we try to protect the core elements of the overall build, and because all those elements as we approach Scott Street are all bundled together, that's what we identified as a potential savings if council wishes to trim money off of the project spend, recognizing that bid documents exceeded what we had originally identified in our budget forecast.
Thank you.
Yeah, CO McNeely, so we're still doing the trail and the other things, but up to a certain point, and then it stops when it hits at the base of the hill, basically because of what you just stated. Where was the area that Councilor Austin was talking about? Where was that going to be located?
So the Armorstone feature was generally in that location where we went from, we'll call this organic trail to the asphalt surface. So as part of our rework, value engineering, we were taking some of the Armorstone out of the ridge and placing it more on the flat area. So the amount of work required to undertake the installation is less. We made the footprint a little bit smaller. So we would get most of that Armorstone feature in, albeit in a slightly altered location and slightly smaller footprint. That's partially the area we talked about putting in the food forest. So some of the more stable trees perhaps be planted in the ridge itself, but the smaller, more accessible types of plant growth would be within that Armorstone feature on the lower or level areas.
Councilor Roman.
Madam Mayor, I agree with Councillor Osborne's comments in the sense that I think we should complete that path through to Scott Street. There's no real formal entrance to the park, and I think this would be a nice feature to have an actual entrance. And in terms of the Armorstone, I think we should just complete the project and not think we've done it. Maybe staff can comment as to funding possibilities. Do we have any other funds available in reserve, any projects that perhaps were under budget that we could fund this extra $50,000 from?
And before we go there, could I suggest that if we put in a certain amount of money for councillors to use for different things in their ward? No, we never used that money, did we?
So, Madam Mayor, as part of the 2022 operating budget, we did put aside money for council to utilize within their wards. No, the funds have not been used. Those were operating budget. We're looking at a capital spend, so it comes out of different.
And never the twain shall meet.
Correct. So to, I could, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Austin, the question that was raised If we were to come back 3 years, 5 years down the road and finish off that last length, it would cost us more than 50,000 that we're trying to save today.
Yes.
Part of that is obviously what the escalation factor going forward. We have to be honest, construction materials continue to climb each year. The other is just the scale of the work. There's a certain cost just built in the mobilization. You got to think about the contractor setting up, moving the horses there to get their equipment, insurance, their bonding, and the like. So there's a certain background cost just to come back and do this project, whereas today it's built into the overall build that was in the bid document. So if we come back at a future date, it will be at a higher unit cost than what we're talking about today. I do think we have to acknowledge that the pricing that we received is expensive. It's more than we had accounted for. But the order of magnitude of remnant piece, if we come back later, will be even higher per unit. In terms of funding, the treasurer and I did have a conversation when we prepared not only this report, but when we looked at the 10-year forecast, which will obviously be an item for discussion tomorrow, we do have available funds available in the Energy Plus reserve. And if council were to fund the extra 50,000, in other words, the bid document as we know it would not prejudice the ability to deliver other projects that are laid out in the 10-year forecast, which also draw from the reserve account over the next 10-year horizon.
So this motion then would be that, council, is there anyone who is not in favor of using that money from the energy reserve fund to do this project and its completeness? Are there any other comments? So, CO, how would you recommend the motion be read?
So, Madam Mayor, the clerk, I believe, has a draft available that she can read out to all members of council. So what it would do is it would eliminate any discussion about a negotiation of a lower price.
Thank you.
So
Please.
the resolution itself would be to authorize the spend at the quoted price of the bid document, set up the project contingency. It would allow the treasurer to fund the variance, as well as where the source of funding would be, and then allow the mayor and clerk to execute any documents associated with this transaction.
Thank you for thinking ahead, and can I have a motion, please?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Osner, that rec report number 21-2022 be received, and that council award the ND-RFT-REC 02-2022 Schmidt Park improvements in the amount of $530,000, $572 plus HST to Onyx General Contracting, and that a project contingency of $73,502.50 be established, and that the treasurer be authorized to fund the budget variance of $230,000 and $230,000 $500 plus net HST from the Energy Plus reserve account, and that the mayor clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to facilitate the completion of this project.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And next we have anybody wish to call over government services? There's only the one report. Anyone wishing questions on the one report for fire services? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself and by Councilor Officer that we recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report. This is the governance services function area 10.1.4A, board number FD 08.2, fire department needs to respond summary, July 2022. That the FD report 08.2 be received for purposes of engineering.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Can I have the adjournment from committee of the whole, please, to move back into council?
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman, that committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Can I have the adoption of the committee of the whole resolutions, and Council McCreary, you do not have to read it in its entirety.
Just note, we do have the one item that would
Oh.
need to be changed.
Which item is, oh,
Two of those items were pulled, so they're
right,
not as presented.
yeah, you can just state them as presented to the committee of the whole, not as written.
And then I can provide the amended.
All right, you can just state as amended for those items.
Oh, okay. Moved by Counselor, or myself, and seconded by Counselor Gillespie. The council adopt resolutions as presented by committee of the whole dated August the 8th, 2022. Report number 10/24/2022. 2022 additional Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Foundation grant award and allocation. Report number PD 32/2022, Part 4 Ontario Heritage Act, amend bylaw to designate heritage property at 2596 Elks Road. Report number 33. Report number CAO 33/2022. Update Region of Waterloo Draft Land Needs Assessment 2021 to 2051 and Regional Official Plan Review. Report number CAO 25/2022. Revised and updated consideration of installing dedicated plaque McNeil and Dodd Skate Park as amended. Report number PW 15/2022. 2022 State of Infrastructure Roads Report. Report number PW 16/2022. Request for tender award ND RFT EPW 06-2022. Sidewalk new construction and rehabilitation. Report number PW 17-2022. Boundary Road Agreement, with City of Hamilton. Report number REC 21/2022. Request for tender award ND RFT REC 02/2022 Smith Park improvements as amended. Report number REC 22/2022. Request for tender award ND RFT REC 3-2022 baseball lighting Schmidt Park and Victoria Park. Report number REC 23/2022. Project cost adjustment for 3 lit tennis courts, Schmidt Park. Report number REC 24/2022. Leisure Services Master Plan, priority recommendations 1 to 3 years, implementation strategy, and report number FD 8/2022. Fire Department Incident Response Summary, July 2022.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Will the adoption of the minutes, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Roman. Council approved the following minutes. Special council meeting minutes dated June 6, 2022. Regular council meetings, meetings dated June 27, 2022. And council meeting minutes dated July 11th, 2022.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next are the correspondence items. Is there any that anyone would like to pull? I have multiple ones.
We can go through these ones one by
Oh, we're
one.
gonna go through each one. Okay. Yeah, okay, so the first one is, the Supreme Court ruling that deemed prayers and, did we find out if that was a real ruling? It is? Okay,
So Madam Mayor, clerk did do some research.
Yeah, so we did find that there was a ruling that deemed it unconstitutional. So we have prepared a draft motion But we did go back and look at the 2018 inaugural council meeting that was held, and we did do words of reflection at that time, and it was read by a reverend. So we have prepared a motion that for future inaugural meetings, that we will make sure that the words of reflection focus more on a broader item for discussion rather than on any prayers.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland, please make a motion.
Madam Mayor, moved by myself, second by Councillor Oster, that the correspondence between municipal be received. And that consistent with the Supreme Court ruling that deemed prayers at municipal council meetings as discriminatory, township staff shall, as part of all future inaugural meetings of council, ensure all requests for future speakers as part of the words of reflection focus on broader items of discussion.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried.
So Madam Mayor, if I could just elaborate just a little bit on that. So the Supreme Court ruling talked about prayer being discriminatory in its nature. It's not everyone recognizes the same things. What it did suggest was if you wish to do something similar to that, you just have a pause and any individual then can to themselves recognize whatever faith they might have or beliefs. But the actual outward speaking of the prayer is discriminatory.
Thank you, COA. Next up is the correspondence received from Catherine Moore requesting a food truck license be waived, and that's for the North Dumfries Power Ranch. What are your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen?
I'm fine with it.
I see no hands up. Can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gillespie, that the correspondence from Catherine Moore be received and that council designate the Bowie Match event being held at 1784 Northumberland Street as a special event under the mobile food vendor bylaw number 3305-22 to accommodate one food truck. And that the request that the food truck licensing fee be waived.
We're not denying this, we're allowing.
So council would have to vote that resolution.
So we get all those in favor of the motion. All those opposed?
Sorry, I better finish the motion
Yeah,
then.
go ahead.
Because just so we know, it says, and that the request that the food truck licensing fee be waived be denied.
All those in favor? Opposed? Can we please have a motion saying that we will, another motion, please?
So Madam Mayor, council is part of that motion. Tell us how it was going to be funded because of our expenses for the corporation.
And we will turn to Christina Brox and he suggests, could we use can we use part of our funds?
If a member of council wishes to use it out of its called the council fund, then yes.
How much is
Oh, because they're looking at just using for it's one day, it would be $75.
the mayor would like to use partial out of her fund, please.
Sorry, what would that fund be called? It's
Mayor's discretionary fund?
No, it is the council recognition fund.
Can you read the motion, please, Ms. Sage? Councilman Query has her hand up. Go ahead.
We're looking for some funding for this. You're taking it up. You can take it out of our counselors.
That's what I'm just doing, but each of us has a loan, so one of us has to commit, so I can.
Okay, so you don't need any more.
No.
It's been funded.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep mine.
Can we use the same motion and just add at the end? Like, get rid of the 9, just add that.
Yep, that's what I've done. Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder for that motion?
Councilor Austin will move, Councilor Rowland second.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rowland that the correspondence from Catherine Moore be received and that council designate the plowing match event being held at 1784 Northumberland Street as a special event under the mobile food vendor bylaw number 3305-22 to accommodate one food truck, and that the request that the food truck licensing fee be waived be approved, and that the $75 licensing fee be funded from the council recognition fund.
All those in favor? That's carried, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, the next one is, the sheep farmers, regarding the dogs up 38 dogs. Can we have the motion, please, Councilor Perry?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that the correspondence from John Hempstead, Chair, Ontario Sheep Farmers, be received, and that staff be directed to prepare a report to council on the request made by the Ontario Sheep Farmers and the status of the current bylaws of the municipality relating to restrictions governing dogs.
All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Item 12.4, at Vincent and Howard National Drive regarding the intersection. Any questions or comments here? Councilor Rowland?
Madam Mayor, on August 3rd, I met the CAO at that location, at the intersection. Traffic does seem to be pretty quickly through there, heading west east. There is currently stop signs that on the north south leg of it. So CAO and I just thought that would be a good idea if we did move forward before we stop.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing that, yes, I've always thought there should be. I'm always concerned about the lack of substance. Can we have the motion, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Curry that the correspondence from Brad Finnegan be received and that the concerns expressed about the intersection of Vincent Drive and Howard Marshall Street and the associated traffic movements in proximity to this intersection be referred to staff for a future report to council.
All those in favor? That's carried. That's carried. Thank you. Councilor Rowland?
Just want to, as a follow-up, Madam Mayor, I was wondering how long before we can actually get that intersection in place. I was wondering, will it be next meeting or how long staff anticipate before we have the bylaw in place?
So we also want to take a look at just beyond the stop sign. We want to actually take a look at whether or not there's other issues, whether we should look at some traffic calming, whether we need to look at some parking in proximity to the intersection. So it's our intent to come back for this council term ends to deal with the issue. The issue of stop control is one aspect. I believe there's merits. We saw it firsthand. We were out on site, but we just want to make sure that all the aspects are properly captured so that council can look at it in its full nature. We may do things in phases, but we want to make sure that everything properly identified so the council's comfort with the broader context of issues are addressed.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions? Seeing none. Next up is the correspondence received from the Minister for Seniors and Accessibility regarding the 2022 Ontario Seniors Achievement Award. Is there anyone would like to report the name of a senior that we would like recognized? Councilor Rowland?
Madam Mayor, I was wondering if Lynn Creedon would be a good example. She's done a lot of work revitalizing the garden club, turning it around. The year of the garden this year is a big undertaking, so I feel that her efforts should be recognized.
Is there anyone else that can? So, CEO McNally staff will look into
So, Madam, there is a resolution, and we would council would identify Ms. Creedon, and then the clerk and I will craft a package for submission to the ministry before the appropriate deadline, so it can be considered in the broader nomination process.
the resolution only says that we see the information.
Printing it right now.
Clerk has a resolution this afternoon, ready to go.
Is it ready to go? Okay. So
I just plugged the name
oh,
in.
okay. So do you want to read it, please, Ms. Smith?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility regarding the 2022 Ontario Seniors Achievement Award be received, and that Lynn Creedon be nominated for the 2022 Ontario Seniors Achievement Award, and that staff submit the recognition through the ministry.
All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay, and next up we have the communications and correspondence. Is there any items that anyone wishes to fully discuss? There's a few I had. Councillor Gillespie, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to say that we should support 14.1.4, the resolution of Seaton and County Hastings regarding extending the Amber Alert systems. I think that's pretty important.
That's the one I had as well. So in this correspondence, folks, Amber Alerts are only for abducted children. And now we're wishing them to be for missing children. And then they gave him the example of the young boy that was missing for so long and that Amber Alert was not deployed. So what are other people's thoughts? Councillor Austin?
Sorry, I wanted to add 14.1.7 to that as well, for support.
Sure. Okay, so let's just, can we just go on with the Amber Alert one? Is that, do we want to support that? I see no dissension, so we will support that message. Take care of that. Thank you. Now, Councillor Austin, talking about the correspondence received on the Region Integrated Drugs Strategy regarding overdose awareness day. So would you like to elaborate on?
Sorry?
Is it not 14.1.7 correspondence from the
Yes.
region? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you saying that we endorse that?
Yes, I think so. I think it would be quite important to have overdose awareness days for the not only for the kids, but for the adults.
Okay, and is anybody else have any comments on that? The message, you will make sure that we that one.
Yep.
So Madam Mayor, what we will be doing is on the 31st, we will be doing some promotional information into the 31st, and then August 31st itself, we will be identifying social platforms, us talking about international groups.
Thank you. I believe there was one in regard to Carol Clancy, no stopping, no parking, no top. Does anybody want to address that again, or are we going to do we leave it as it is, ladies and gentlemen? Comments?
Isn't that what we decided at the last meeting?
That's correct, Councilor Owen.
Madam Mayor, I'm talking with residents in that neighborhood, I haven't had any complaints about the current system, so I think Ms. Clancy is concerned about it, but I think in general it seems pretty well. So I'm sort of hesitant about changing.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else feel like they should say the same, or? So looks like there's no comments there, so that one, they say it as is. The other one I had down was the residential housing money laundering. It was very interesting. Did we want to endorse that, or are we concerned about that? I don't see any concern, so we'll just take it as for information. Oh, Councilor Rowland, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, in the article from Brantford, it does talk about money laundering and homeownership, but one of the things that we've seen is people buying a number of properties, then say townhouses, they buy 10 townhouses in development, and then they hold on to them and they flip them. I'm wondering if that would be in the same sort of category about these big companies coming in, buying up all the development, or building an apartment building and then condos, that sort of thing. So is that along the same sort of vein, do you think, or that's separate?
I would think that's separate, but I'm not exactly sure. CEO McNally?
The government of Ontario is looking at ways of better controlling inventory, specifically as it relates to specified rental accommodation and speculative nature of dwelling units. It'll be interesting to see whether we see some legislation in the next few months brought forward by the government dealing specifically with affordability and whether or not this will be a part of their toolkit that they bring forward to try and engage better control. You are correct. We have witnessed even locally speculative nature where they buy at pre-construction pricing and then literally just as occupancy is about to be issued, they're selling it at a higher premium price. We have witnessed it. It's happening across the road at townhouse development. See it already. The signs are going up, and it is an issue, and it's more magnified in larger centers just because of the quantity of homes that were being constructed.
Councilwoman, you brought up the issue of the apartment building rentals going to condos. And CO McNeely and I are meeting with the region this week because they have not, staff at the region have not endorsed our leaving them as rentals yet. So we'll meet with them and I will strongly put forward what this council is basically demanding, that they remain rental. And we'll let you know the outcome of that. So the motion for correspondence, Council Ossner, and you can state as amended because we've amended a few to action. We do not have to read it entirely. You can just do correspondence 14.1.1 to 14.1.9.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Roman. The council received for the purposes of information the following items: 14.1.1 to 14.1.9 as amended.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next is the list of the GRCA. Councilor Cleary, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gillespie. The council received for the purposes of information the following items: Grand River Conservation Authority minutes, June the 24th, 2022.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, is there any other business?
Yes.
Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two items related both to rec. I was speaking with some of the players that enjoy our pickleball outdoor. They were talking about the outdoor, and what they noted was that the pickleball nets are not as high as the tennis nets, and they were wondering if we were going to come up with a system where the nets could be altered or raised or lowered as needed for pickleball or tennis. That's question number one. And it makes sense because I don't imagine people that play tennis want to play on pickleball nets to get lower. So that's question number one. Question number two, which I thought was actually a very good item brought up. If the concession booth here at the NBCC is closed and some of the other parks, the request was, can we put a water bottle refill station at this, like out by the soccer fields here or somewhere by the concession where they can fill the water bottles up, because there's nowhere to get water if the concession stand's not open. And this person brought it forward to me because her son was playing and they couldn't, nobody can get water, especially if there's a tournament and such. And then I started thinking about up at Schmidt Park as well, and possibly Victoria Park if we have the same issue there when the concession booth's not open.
So, Madam Mayor, as part of the contract award, when we did the Victoria Park washroom facilities, we, as part of that bill, we actually did put an outdoor water bottle refill station. So as soon as we get that building turned over to us, residents in Vic Park will be able to access on the exterior east elevation, west elevation, west elevation, a water refill station. It will be winterized such that, the colder season, it will be drained for obvious reasons, but during the seasonal months, it'll be operational. We also, as part of that contract, we're going to be doing some barrier-free improvements at both Schmidt Park and Callan Park. And as part of that was one outdoor water refill station at each of those two locations. So no shoddy, but we're finished later this fall. Vic, Schmidt, and Callan Parks at each of the respective buildings. Water bottle substation.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Ossner, I actually talked to Vic staff about the pickleball outdoor, and she said the difference is just over an inch. You know, McNeely?
So, yes and no. The tennis court is much wider than a pickleball court. The tennis court at the post, the regulation has to be 41 inches height above the surface of the playing field. When you move interior, it's allowed to sag to a certain height. The sag generally corresponds with the width of the pickleball court. We did measure R2. I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit easier to measure at Schmidt Park than Vic Park, just given the nature of technology used to anchor the net. We are about 3/4 of an inch higher than the sag at the pickleball versus what a pickleball height is.
So based upon that information, I don't think it would warrant the cost of getting something different.
So unfortunately, right now, both facilities are set up just with opening and closing hours. So there's not a defined period saying, between hour X and hour Y on a given day, it's exclusive use for pickleball. So not knowing when an individual is going to come and play tennis versus pickleball, it's difficult to, for lack of a term, raise or lower the net. Okay. That's one of the disadvantages of having a multi-purpose or dual focus court system. I have seen where some municipalities, based on demand, have specified an opening and closing window of time for a specific use. And they've taken the nets out and they put the other nets in. But now you've got to coordinate staff time to retrofit the facility based on those types of activities. I guess what we can do is sort of monitor activity and see, what the uptake is. And maybe in 23, it makes sense to look at some specified hours or days of the week when it's dominated by one activity or the other, and then we can make the adjustment accordingly.
I also talked to an individual and they said that why don't we designate one of the courts as pickleball, so one of the courts is just tennis and keep them second.
Is there, oh, sorry. That was still.
So we're trying to promote the ease of the accessibility, ease for children, youth, and adults. Ideally, walking or cycling in. That's why spatially they're located where they are. If you designate one versus the other, then depending upon where you are, you might have a longer travel distance. That might be a discouragement for some people to use one or both facilities.
That was my answer. Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Sorry. So is there such a system where it's like a pin and latch system where you can have it up at the height of tennis, pull the pin out, drop it down, put the pin back in so that the user groups can adjust as needed? Is there such an animal like that?
I'm sure there is. Not talking to Big Park, it's an older system, but at Schmidt, it's actually a hand ratchet. that's sort of concealed so that people can't move the net, because we didn't want vandalism. Well, that's why I was saying, if we have programmed hours, that we can adjust, but it would be for that specific program during the defined hours. We've tried to the best of our abilities to make this technology tamper-proof, so that we don't witness some damage to park infrastructure.
So would it be fair to say that we'll leave it for this season, staff will come back with a report, before next season, if any suggestions or their evaluation? Does that count? Okay, Councilor Lawson? Thank you. Any other business from any other councilors? Seeing none, next is mayor's and councilors report. 16.1 is the one where we got the correspondence from the Roseville resident. And I would ask staff to look at the situation. There was talk about closing off Paul Ave, but you have to have justification for that. And you can't just close off Paul Ave because people are using it. So staff will look into this and come back to councils. And in that will also be the update on the Roseville Road, because I believe it's been deferred again to 2025 CLPO.
So that is the earliest time period be based on budget forecast that regional council, remembering the Fisher Hallman and Roseville Road are regional roads. The Roseville Road project slipped out a couple more years from its original delivery timetable. And so in January, the regional council dealt with the capital forecast and identified the 25 time horizon. We'll see what happens with this budget cycle coming up for the 23 budget year.
Yes, this will be interesting to see what will be back, Councilor Austin.
Thank you. Speaking of Roseville Road, I was on Roseville Road a few times over the weekend, and when you get towards the T intersection next is Fisher Hallman, if you continue east on Roseville Road, there is one pole with a 50-kilometer sign on it, but it looks to me like somebody has put up these white, that it almost looks like a birch log on the side, and there's one in the middle, and I'm a little concerned about it because it's broken off at about 18 inches off the ground. I'm a little concerned if somebody runs over that, it's going to ram right through their radiator or underneath of their vehicle. It didn't look too safe to me, and it surprised me when I saw it. I don't know what it is, but it does not look like something the township or the region would put up.
So, Madam Mayor, just to assist me, Councilor Rosser, the region did a fix along the center line of reflective chevrons, and literally within a day or two of them being installed, they were snapped off. Is that what you're talking about in the center line of the road?
What he's saying is he thinks somebody put something on top of a broken chevron that could be dangerous to the
Yeah.
traffic.
It does not look like something that the region or township or anybody official would put on there. It looks like a wooden, it looks like a chunk of birch. And it looks distinctly different than the one that's left that has the 50-kilometer sign on. That looks like a pole. This looks like a piece of wood that is snapped off at about 18 inches. So when you come through Roseville and you're heading east, and you go past Fisher Hallman, the first one you'll see is on the right-hand side on the bike lane. It looks like the region had an official thing there, sign, and it said 50, but it looks like somebody may have put something else in there because it's broken. And then there's an official 50-kilometer stanchion, and then there's another one that's broken off. It's on the westbound lane, or maybe it's in the middle. But anyway, it's broken off at about 18 inches, and it's still sitting like that. So I think that's dangerous.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that Regional Works is aware of these issues in their court.
Yeah.
Maybe Lee, if you could go get staff to even take pictures and send it to the region, because I know the region has been call to move this several times. Thank you. So, there's a motion regarding to, Paul Ave and Roseville, Council Gillespie, please. Oh, Council Williams, sorry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. With regards to Paul Ave, it seems a couple of years ago, we had an open house there with the region. A lot of us were talking about traffic on Paul Avenue. And basically, they felt it was when the southbound traffic on Fisher Hallman backed up past that church and past Paul Avenue, and then suddenly cars would make a left-hand turn onto Paul Avenue, and driving through that is a shortcut to get back on the road. So at that time, one of the things that was discussed was making Paul Avenue right turn only out of Paul Avenue. So you can't make a left-hand turn into Paul Avenue southbound. Off the
It's a regional road, so we would have to request that of the region, and I don't think they went for it last time.
Isn't Paul Avenue or
No, you're saying a left on Fisher Hallman onto Paul Ave, which the problem is.
yeah, so if you could you not block the intersection of Paul Avenue and not allow cars to enter in there, only to take a right turn out?
The CEO McMillan and I talked about this and blocking of Paul Ave and justification. CEO McMillan, please.
So, Madam Mayor, resolution the staff have directed is to update our data for basically the settlement area of Roseville. Travel speed on both Roseville, Fisher Hallman, and Paul Ave to look at not only speed but traffic counts, because we can get it right down to the hour increment over a 24-hour period over multiple days. We have to, if we're going to look at potentially traffic calming on Paul Avenue, which could include potentially closing temporarily the ability to exit onto Fisher Hallman from Paul Ave, or access from Fisher Hallman onto Paul Ave. We have to actually go through the environmental assessment process, where we actually have to have a problem statement, which what are we trying to solve, and then look at the alternatives that are available to deal with whatever the problem statement is. So the first thing we need to do is confirm that we have a problem. Hence why we update our data, because all of our data is older. We didn't do any counts during the pandemic because traffic volumes were substantially reduced region-wide because of the stay-at-home orders of the province. And so the data would not have been reasonable or reflective, perhaps true patterns, non-pandemic. So with the resolution, we are seeking to update our data, confirm that we have a problem statement, and then we'd be able to bring back to council the next steps in terms of how we would go about assessing opportunities to deal with whatever the issue is. You are correct. We do control Paul Avenue itself. We can do measures on Paul Avenue, absent of the region. However, we would then have to have consultations with the broader neighborhood that's impacted on whatever those options are, and the council have to ratify course of action once that engagement has been completed and the options have been scored and assessed.
Can I have the motion, please, Council Preston?
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry, missed your hand, sorry, Council.
I was only gonna add on with Councilor Woolman's statement about when we had that meeting. Memory serves right, it wasn't it, they did the local residents weren't in favor of making Paul Avenue the one way. Wasn't I seem to remember that they when presented with that idea, they weren't too happy about that.
So we had about 4 meetings with them, and one meeting they wanted a lot of things done. The next meeting they wanted nothing done. And then the last meeting, one gentleman overtook the meeting where he wanted it to be a gated community. So, but let's go with this traffic count and use logic. The traffic count and everything else will tell us what needs to be done. So can I have a motion, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rowland that staff review the matters associated with traffic movements and vehicular speed in the community of Roseville, focusing on Fisher Hallman Road, Roseville Road, and Paul Avenue, and that staff assess the concerns surrounding Paul Avenue through the lens of the township's traffic calming policy, and that staff prepare a report for consideration of council on the issue of traffic movements and vehicular speed in the community of Roseville.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. And is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up on the council's reports? Seeing no hands, can I have the first and second reading of bylaw, please,
And Mayor, moved by myself, second by Councilor Ossner, that the following bylaw be taken as read the first and second time. Bylaw number 3340-22 being a bylaw next to road boundary agreement, City of Hamilton, and bylaw number 3341-22 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 918-86 to correct the legal description of the property.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Can I have the third reading of the bylaw, please?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Gillespie, that the following bylaw be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3340-22, being a bylaw to execute a road boundary agreement with the City of Hamilton. And bylaw number 3341-22, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 918-86 to correct the legal description of the property.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We will be moving into closed, in report number CAO 26-2022, a proposed and or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality of local board. And 18.2, report number CAO 27-2022, personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations and employee negotiations. So can I have the motion to move into closed, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rowland. The council moved into a closed meeting session at 7:08 PM under the Municipal Act, Section 239, 2B, C and D to discuss report number CAO 26-2022, a proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 2, report number CAO 27-2022, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiations.
All those in
Just turning everybody back on.
favor?
Yeah, so we have the motion from Councilor Gillespie to reconvene, and then we move into the reporting out.
Could you ask her to let me do the camera, please?
Cynthia, are you able to restart Mayor Foxton's camera?
I still can't turn it on. My host is still.
Did she start it? You get a.
We're live. Thank you. Can I have the motion to reconvene into the council, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Ossner, that the closed meeting session of council is complete at 7:32 PM. The open council meeting resumes.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Regarding report number CAO 26-2022, staff have been provided direction on a property related matter. This will be recorded in the meeting minutes. Can I have a motion for the other item of closed council roll, please?
Moved by myself and by Councilor Ossner, that the chief administrative officer may recruit and hire a temporary facility operator the equivalent of 40 hours per week to backfill position for maximum time period of 4 months, not to extend beyond December 2022.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Can I have the confirmatory bylaw, please? Councilor Austin?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Rowland, that bylaw number 3342-22, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on August 8, 2022, be read a first, second, third time, and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Can I have the adjournment, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Blaski. That whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 7:04 p.m. and be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Tuesday, August the 9th at 6 p.m. for a special council.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, are there any comments from the council? Any questions from the media? Nope. Okay, have a good evening, ladies